Hey guys, it's Pintoshi. I promised you a video, so here it is. It's gonna be on Bitcoin dominance versus altcoins. And a good way to think about it is what is trending harder? Is Bitcoin trending harder or are altcoins? Another way to view it as well is when the market is correcting, is Bitcoin correcting harder or are altcoins? And that's basically what the chart ends up showing. And for the most part, you have to realize that alt seasons are going to be typically much smaller than what happens with Bitcoin. So I want to go back to an older post I had made. And at the time, it's much different than now. The landscape's changed a lot. But the euphoria was very similar, which was the DeFi summer. And back in August 20th or so, I had basically decided to exit my alt positions. I thought that the alt market was looking pretty toppy. I'd made a long thread about it at the time. And, what we had ended up seeing was basically a massive 50% correction versus USD for alts in the first couple weeks of September. And at that point, Bitcoin had started to correct as well, I believe. But I wanted to go back to that thread because it's an important spot, and it is right now as well. We're basically at the same spot of Bitcoin dominance. And what had happened, of course, you always have to zoom out. I'm going to start with that. You always have to zoom out because you have to be able to look at the relevant data that we have. And a lot of that historically from the previous years, like 2018, we can see what happens when Bitcoin dominance came into this section and had acted as a tough resistance. Eventually, it had flipped it to support, broke through, and it really just tore alts apart as we headed up to July of 2019, which is when Bitcoin, I think, had gone from during that time, around 3,200 down here to 13,000. So of course altcoins can go up in USD, but you're clearly better off being in Bitcoin in that situation because Bitcoin is outperforming altcoins. And based on what I've seen, it's roughly a 1% rise in Bitcoin dominance is going to equate to a 10% loss in the average alt versus Bitcoin. Now, of course, there's going to be outliers. This is talking about the total market as a whole, right? Because it's Bitcoin versus alts. So during this time, what had happened, let's go back to the actual chart. And here it is. Altcoins basically nuked against Bitcoin, and it went up to this 72 level. And again, this is a level we knew was extremely important. Why? Because it's where the last alt rally happened versus Bitcoin that led into that alt season, the DeFi summer. So these points, and this is what's great about historical data and horizontal supports and resistances, they're good for the lifetime of the asset. They can last years. We could be trading Bitcoin and alts 1,000 years from now, and as long as it's trading, at these levels, they're still going to be relevant. But let's go to where we are now, or I guess let's go to where this one started, which was here. Again, this was the best time you could get into alts, which was basically the beginning of 2021 after Bitcoin had made new all-time highs. We came right back up to this pivot, which again started the 2018 alt rally, which was for most of us the biggest one we've ever seen, where things basically went 5, 10, 20, 30x overnight. But we can see that price came back up here. We're going to call it price for now. It came back up to the 72 level, and we could see, there's starting to be a lot of wicks here. There's a lot of low time frame rejections, and it's a good signal and a great entry because it's as clear to invalidation as possible. We know that if Bitcoin dominance goes above this level, then it's likely to continue, but what we saw was a lot of rejections. And that leads us to where we are now. And let's go back to the thread I just made, which is here. So we have a really fast alt season in this sense, where it comes down to this level, you start seeing euphoria, alts start going parabolic, and what happens, of course, is people think it's never going to end, the market can't correct, retail's coming, but at the end of the day, the market isn't necessarily controlled by retail, it's controlled by people who have larger positions. And what appears to happen, because we've seen this historically, they're either rotating into alts or they're rotating into Bitcoin. And in this instance, you're close to invalidation, you had a massive move. It makes sense at that point to, protect your capital, take some off the table. And this is what I was thinking coming into this zone, was to basically rotate into Bitcoin. And if it lost this level, then I would have personally felt safe re-entering alts and targeting lower, this level down here. What's happened so far is that we've started to reject, and we can see that here on the daily chart. So I'm just going to delete this, make it easier. We had a really strong reaction moments after the tweet, and it basically came back above this level, which was the range high from the August to September consolidation. And now, today, we basically shot right up to the 63 level, which is another important spot where alts formed their short-term local bottoms. The key thing now is that we can't see this do this again. Otherwise, we know that it's likely going to be over for, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, who knows, right? But we have to pay attention to this because it's our signal. What we would like to see for alt season to continue is price has to get below this level, and ultimately it has to get below this 57 level. But right now we can't see the start to reverse. We definitely can't see this reclaimed. This would also be a great signal, is if this starts to get reclaimed as support, then we know it's likely going to trend up towards the 65 to 67 area. And based off what we know, that's going to be, from this point, a pretty significant drop, because each 1% equates to roughly 10%. And we know that things can drop 10% repeatedly because we've seen it so many times. It's really hard to take profits off the board when you're doing well, because you feel like you're going to miss out. But chances are you're probably up, 5 to 10x in the last 2 months, or you should be. And you have to realize those gains aren't gains until they're realized. And when this happens, or if it happens, the market ends up taking those gains from you, and you end up waiting to get your money back, and it just never comes back. I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I think that this correction in alts will be pretty short-lived. We already got a 20 to 30% dip on many of them, but the key things to watch is going to be watching this and watching new lows being formed. And you're going to want to have confirmation, and sometimes you have to pay for it. You have to say, hey, I'm going to protect the 5 to 10x I just made, and I'm going to wait for the market to be a little bit clearer. And that's the way I view it coming into these situations. I want more clarity. So this is basically how I trade the chart. I focus on high time frames, and then I know I have 1 to 2 or 3 months of these gains to be made. And then I rotate back into Bitcoin or back into USD depending on market conditions. And then when we get back to key levels, for example, in this situation, let's say that Bitcoin dominance does go up, I have a hard time believing it would ever go back above here. It just doesn't seem likely. It ended up forming likely a lower high or something like that, and then it would continue on its way. But the market has to correct to go higher at times. It's just quite often the case. So I hope this has helped you guys out, and please feel free to drop any comments with any questions. Make sure to like and subscribe. I love to continue making these videos for you guys, and I hope you had a great weekend.